social media is changing the dynamic between the learner and the educator. What could you say about that in terms of what you're seeing in terms of that evolution, and perhaps focusing on the notion that it's also supporting things like anywhere, anytime learning as well?
Well, I'm a bit, people sometimes think I'm sort of talking about the future and quite radical about it. I think I'm the most conservative bloke on the planet, because the model of learning I've seen is the effective model of learning. It's been around for a few thousand years. It depends on community, it depends on mutuality, it depends on trust, it depends on authority and understanding. And I think that was very true of our early education systems. They had problems with equity and so on, but the model of learning was pretty powerful. And it was only as we moved towards a factory model of learning that some of that got lost. We only introduced essays because Oxford University introduced essays because they hadn't got enough people to do, to listen to the vivas, and that was so they wanted to get them to write it down instead. So a lot of the things we've done in education, 30 children in a class because they're born between 2 Januaries, or ringing a bell and expecting 1,000 teenagers to be simultaneously hungry. A lot of the stuff we did, particularly between 1950 and 2000, was about industrial learning, and it was completely duff. We lost the interest of children, we lost the ability to be ingenious, we lost a whole lot of stuff. And I just see learning going back to where it was. I mean, folk listening to this, my mum was an inveterate letter writer, and every time I went to visit her, she'd tell me what the family were all doing and various scandals, that were sort of, I told him it would never last, and you'll never guess what young Watson's doing, When she died, we lost all that, but I've got it back now with Facebook. Facebook's brought me back into, I know what all my nephews and nieces are doing, who they're snogging, what their Freshers' Week looks like, what their successes and disasters are like. It's fabulous. And in between that, we thought people would just sit and watch television. Well, of course they wouldn't. So I just think there's a natural model of social behaviour and learning that is pretty given, and technology once again is allowing us to pursue that, which is a very gentle thing, I think.
If we really look at the key differences between the use of social media in an educational context,
yes,
and a private context, what are those key differences?
There's, folk watching this will be aware, I think, that most of us, the crossover between learning and social has got awful blurred. I mean, how many of you watching have done email in bed? Pretty much all of you. And it doesn't matter if you've got a great relationship and a pretty gorgeous partner, you've still done email in bed at some point. So there's a big crossover, and I think the big mistake we made was to compartmentalise learning, to say learning is what you do at school, the relationship with the home is that parents get to see at a parents' evening or at a display, or we've got this wonderful virtual learning network where parents can come in and watch whether their children have done their homework. It's not like that, 4/5 of their life is spent outside school, 1/5 is spent in school. If we think learning can only happen in school, we've kissed goodbye to so much potential. So, for me, children are learning online. They go to YouTube to find out how to do things. They swap ideas with each other on Facebook. They're active learning. They're making contributions. They're building their self-esteem because somebody else has asked them how to do something. And then when enough people have asked, they think, well, I think I'll tell the world. And the world, they put up their video on YouTube and they get 1,000 hits. I think that's pretty cool, So they are learning online. I mean, the question is whether we can validate or even notice that learning in schools. If we don't, the learning they're doing elsewhere will be more seductive and more engaging. It's the school bit that will disappear. And that would be a real shame. I love schools.
What are some of the innovations that you're seeing that you might expect to have some impact on teaching and learning, particularly that might relate to the notion of social media and mobile technologies merging together?
I get a bit sad about mobile technologies because it was right back in the early 90s, first put a mobile phone in the class. It was a thing like a house brick with an aerial and a proper handset phone on it, And the first kids we showed it to, we said, what do you think of this? And they said, great, we can phone up France and practice our French. Immediately, And now, of course, kids all over the planet are opening Skype bars in the back of their classroom. They're sitting down and habitually working with other classes. And that sense of other, is suddenly really very powerful. And mobile phones have been part of the toolkit that's unlocked that. When my eldest daughter, Juliet, left primary school, I added up the total processing power of a primary school. And when she hit 20, that was at 11, when she hit 21, I realised that the phone in her pocket was more powerful than the entire primary school. So roughly every 10 years, the whole school network is disappearing into the pocket of a child. That's very powerful. But the function evolves. You know, kids don't spend much time talking on their phones. They text a lot. They've got smartphones. They're all over the internet. They've got, and one of the things that's appearing in phones we haven't really taken enough advantage of, I think, are the data capture. You know, my phone's got GPS. My phone's got, it knows where it is. It's got an accelerometer. It's got a compass. You know, it's got a whole lot of stuff. I can listen to sounds. I can see the strength of the wind by holding the microphone up. If I shine the camera through my finger using the flashlight, the phone can count the pulses in my finger and give me a heartbeat back. I mean, it's got the most astonishing capability for data capture. And I think we haven't really begun to tap into that in schools yet. That capability will get stronger. Well, those schools still, those people still out there confiscating the damn things at the gate, you know. What were they thinking?
What are some of the pedagogical suggestions you can give us or make on how the curriculum can be linked to the effective use of particularly new media in education?
I mean, there's a whole debate about literacy, which we should spend a moment on. I'm a professor of new media environments in Bournemouth University, and it matters. You know, children have to be able to communicate with the tools that are around them, and they've got to be able to make judgments about others' communication with the tools. You know, I think there was a brief moment when politicians were so smart with media that they could pull the wool over our eyes a little bit. Now, they're struggling to stay ahead of the honesty and integrity of the back channel, as people say, well, he's saying that, but here's the truth, you know. And it's really important that children are comfortable with those media devices, I think, and the multiple media that they support. So I do believe that children have an entitlement to make their learning contributions in and this is tough for schools and it's tough for universities actually, but you know, what does or equivalent mean? If I'm saying write a 1,500 word essay or equivalent, what is the equivalent for a 9-year-old, for a 14-year-old, for a 21-year-old? You know, it might be managing an online community for a week. That's really important. That's a seminar that, you know, it might be producing an augmented reality object. It might be, making a poster. But the tariff for that changes all the time. You know, it was really hard to make digital movies once. I just get my phone out. I've got iMovie on the phone. I shoot something. I edit it. It's easy peasy. So we have to keep trimming that tariff of what the equivalencies are. And I think education, we've done that really badly. I think we're too easily impressed by the videos that kids make and not impressed enough by the hard stuff that they do, because we don't realise how hard it is. And I think it's a big issue for us. Schools should be in that debate with their children if they're going to get it right.
If we want to be effective as a system, what are some of the examples you've seen that work where systems engaging educators with new media and online learning, and they're coming up with effective pedagogies around that space?
I was talking to some children the other day about what they hoped university was going to be like. And they designed their own classroom, which is pretty cool. And they said, what do you think university's going to be like? And they said it's going to be fantastic because they've got a lot more people there and they're smart. Now, I don't think their wish is going to be quite as exciting as they'd hoped. But they're right about the one thing, which is that many heads get there quicker than a few. And I think what systems used to do was, define a solution and pass it down, that sort of staircase model of you pilot a bit of iteration, define it, pass out a 5-year plan and a policy, and then people followed it. Now, what we want the system to do is, above all else, to be ambitious. You want the system to say, tell you what, in South Australia, let's get the smartest kids on the planet, or let's be the most connected kids in the Southern Hemisphere. Let's find out how we do that together. Now, and I've seen such good work now between teachers at the school level, between schools. The teach meets where they all turn up for an evening, they share a beer, there's 100 of them put into a wiki, the cool things that they're doing in their classroom with their kids that they know to be effective, and here's why. And then on the night, their names get chosen at random, and they rush up to the front, and you've got 3 minutes to talk about your innovation. Everybody boos and cheers and chuck stuff. It's a great, huge amount of fun, and they drink more beer, of course. And at the end of the evening, as a young teacher, you're walking away, you've heard 20 people with good ideas, 10 of them you think, yeah, I could give that a go. 3 of them I'm going to try tomorrow. And by the way, there's a wiki with 80 others, that I can go and refer to. I mean, that takes us far quicker than policy being passed down from the top. But it doesn't happen if that doesn't get validated, if the license isn't given to teachers to share. We're in a world, you know the mantra, that in the last century, you built things to do things for people, and in this century, you help people to help each other. And that's absolutely a systems thing, isn't it?